This aircraft was one of the few German planes that was used all through World War II, despite it was considered obsolete even before the war broke out, and its production ceased way back in 1938. But even though it was an obsolete biplane design, it performed so well that many German officials requested the production to be restarted during the war. This was the Henschel Hs 123 dive bomber and ground attack aircraft. So let's see the history of this aircraft today. The dive bombers of the Second World War are well known, mostly because of the Stuka in Europe and the American and Japanese use on the Pacific, but dive bombing was not a new concept at that time. In the US, Billy Mitchell organized a series of bombing tests on old battleships, using several different tactics, including dive bombing. The conclusion in the US was that the dive bombers could be very accurate and lethal weapons against shipping. In Germany, Ernst Udet, a famous ace pilot from the First World War, was advocating dive bombing during the 1930s. And it was him who pushed several types for this role, including the famous Ju-87 Stuka. He became a fan of the concept after he observed some Curtiss Hawk dive bombers in the US in 1931. Not everyone was enthusiastic about these kind of bombers though. Wolfram from Richthofen, the head of development in the Luftwaffe Technical Service, didn't like the idea. He thought the planned planes were underpowered and slow. He envisioned some much more powerful twin-engine planes for the role, which could flee enemy fighters if needed. The two views clashed many times before World War II, but in 1933 the RLM decided to set new specifications for a dive bomber aircraft. These specifications asked for a single-seat biplane design equipped with two 7.92mm machine guns, and a payload of 1 250 kg and 8 50 kg bombs. The Henschel company entered their Hs 123 for this competition, and their main contender was the Fiesler Fi-98 biplane design. Though Henschel only started making planes a little while ago, and before the Hs 123 they only designed two other types, the 121 trainer prototype and the 122 scout plane, their biplane design for this tender was a very mature design. Despite being a biplane, it had a very streamlined fuselage, and it had an all-metal construction. The RLM, after reviewing the proposals, issued orders for both designs in early 1934. The work on the Henschel plane started in February 1934, and the first V1 prototype rolled out from the factory a bit more than a year later, and started test flights in April 1935. The plane was powered by a BMW 132A engine, producing 725 horsepower. They presented the new aircraft to the Luftwaffe in May, and Ernst Udet also used this opportunity to personally fly the plane on the same day. The plane started the test flights at the end of June, and it performed numerous flights until January 1936. The trials quickly showed that the Henschel design was superior to the Fiesler plane, so the Fi-98 project was soon cancelled. While the V1 prototype made its test flights, the V2 and V3 variants were already under construction. The V2 was ready for its maiden flight by June 1935. This variant differed from the V1, as it used an American Wright 1820 engine producing 770 horsepower, and featured distinctive smooth engine cowlings, without the humps seen on the first version. This variant was damaged in an accident late 1936, and during its repairs the engine was also replaced by a BMW one, thus creating the V8 variant. By February 1936, the new engine cowlings with the two integral machine guns were ready to be tested, and there were actually plans for two wing-mounted machine guns too, but later these were cancelled. The following V3 variant was ready in May 1936, and made its maiden flight in June. This was the first variant that carried armament, and was tested with 50 kg underwing bombs. This plane was crashed in April 1937 when one of the wing struts broke, resulting in the loss of the upper wing, which led to some changes on the next V4 variant. This version was the prototype for the Hs 123A0 pre-production variant. It was tested with an internal bomb bay holding 10 bombs in vertical position, but this wasn't satisfactory, so the idea was dropped. After the crash of the V3 prototype, The V4 received a revised wing center section with stronger struts. The first production aircraft based on this variant left the factory in summer 1936, but several more prototypes were created to test upgrades. Although the RLM still only seen the plane as a stopgap solution until the newer monoplane dive attack aircraft designs were finalized, Henschel decided to test new variants. The V5 version was originally planned to use the Junkers Jumo 210 inline engines, but soon this was changed to the BMW 132 F-type. But in the end, after a long wait, in June 1936, it was decided to use the 830 horsepower BMW 132G variant. But just a month later, the plans changed again to the J variant of the engine. Though as it turned out, this engine was not ready until 1937. In July that year, this plane participated in a competition, where in a trial to climb to 3000 meters and then back to ground level, it was only beaten by a dozen of seconds by the new BF-109 model. The following V6 variant received the same BMW 132J engine, which featured fuel injection. It had a bigger fuel tank, and instead of the additional external fuel tank, a bomb could be carried under the fuselage as well. It was capable of carrying 4 50 kg bombs under the wings, and one 250 kg bomb under the fuselage. This variant also featured a new enclosed cockpit, and should have been the prototype for the later C-type, but that was cancelled before production. Though the HS-123 entered service, it was only considered a stopgap solution, as by that time the RLM set new specifications for a dive bomber, this time for a two-seat modern monoplane, which eventually led to the introduction of the famous Junkers Ju-87. The Junkers plane in this standard was competing against other modern designs, like the Blohm & Voss HA-137 or the Heinkel HG-118. If you would like to watch the full story of the Ju-87 Stuka, I have already made a video on that type, so check it out. Though the Ju-87 was introduced almost immediately after the HS-123, and it was a more modern design, the Henschel plane was accepted as an alternative ground attack aircraft. But the Luftwaffe didn't see it as a long-term project, and the production of the type was cancelled soon after. In 1938 the type was considered obsolete, and the production ceased, and the tools were dismantled. During the 2 years of production, 265 of these planes were built. Little did they know how well the type was going to perform during the war, but more about this when we get to the combat history of the plane. But first, let's take a look at the technical specifications of the type. The HS-123 was 8.33 meters long, with a wingspan of 10.5 meters. It only weighed 1500 kilograms empty, and had a maximum takeoff weight of 2215 kilograms. The plane was powered by a BMW 132D radial engine, producing 880 horsepower. With this powerful engine, it could reach a top speed of 341 km an hour, and had a combat range of 480 km. Its service ceiling was 9000 meters. The plane's armament consisted of two 7.92mm machine guns in the engine cowlings, and optionally it could carry 20mm gun pods under the wings. The payload it could carry was one 250 kg bomb under the fuselage, and 4 50 kg bombs under the wings. The HS-123 entered service with the Luftwaffe in 1936, and though it was initially developed as a dive bomber, it was not used in this role too much, as shortly after its introduction, the more modern and numerous Ju-87s appeared. The type, similarly to many contemporary German aircraft, first saw action in the Spanish Civil War, where 5 of them were deployed in early 1937. The missions conducted in Spain provided a lot of experience with the type. It proved to be near useless as a dive bomber because of the small payload, but found success as a close air support aircraft where the accuracy was more important than the size of the payload. When Germany attacked Poland in 1939, the Hs 123 seen action amongst other German planes again. Its very sturdy airframe and resilient air-cooled engine proved to be able to take a lot of punishment, making it a good candidate for the ground attack role. The airframe could take several 20mm hits and still stay intact and fly home. Though in theory, the Hs 123 could carry 250 kg bombs under the fuselage, but in reality this mounting point was usually taken up by the external fuel tank, as without that the plane had a very short combat range. This short range, however, was somewhat compensated with the plane's ability to use airfields even if they were in bad shape, and its rugged construction needing minimal maintenance. These features allowed the Hs 123 to be stationed closer to the front line, in airfields where other more sophisticated German planes weren't able to operate. They also participated in combat during the attack on the Low Countries and in the Battle of France. Being stationed closer to the front line, they usually flew more missions than other German types, sometimes several sorties a day. The type was also sent to the Balkans, and later used on the Eastern Front when Germany attacked the Soviet Union in 1941 during Operation Barbarossa. The plane's weak armament was a big drawback, but later some of them used field modifications in the form of 20mm cannons carried in underwing pods. This, however, was not an official modification and was very rare. The plane's rugged and simple construction was a great asset on the Eastern Front, where the more advanced designs suffered because of the harsh conditions, though the open cockpit of the Hs 123 made the life of the pilots very hard during the Soviet winter. In 1943, some officials requested to restart the production of the type, but since the tooling was dismantled years ago, this was not possible. Their numbers were slowly decreasing due to combat losses, and the only way to replace them were to bring in planes assigned to training schools or assemble new ones from spare parts. By 1944, most of them were replaced in frontline duties, but the remaining planes still served in secondary roles until the end of the war. A dozen of these planes were also exported to China in 1937, and they fought the Japanese planes in the Second Indo-Japanese War. This plane, which was basically obsolete by the time it entered service, still stayed in use all through World War II, and was found to be a very good asset in the arsenal of the Luftwaffe, mostly because of its strong and easy to maintain construction, and its ability to operate in harsh conditions. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and in the comments let me know if there's any interesting events or vehicles you'd like to see.